Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news, and sometimes reviews. In this video, we're taking a look at arguably the best webcam I have ever reviewed before, the YoloCam S3. Let's get started. Alright, to kick things off, I was sent this YoloCam S3 for a fair and honest review via a YouTube short. And I was so impressed with this thing, I'm deciding to do a main video for it. Spoiler alert, I really like this camera. I didn't have high hopes for it initially, but I was really mistaken. So anyways, it's got a 1/1.3 sensor, it's got AI in it, it's got pro level color grading, it's got 4K Ultra HD quality, and a 0.3 second focus time. Inside the box, they say there's a camera, a mount for the camera, a USB-C cable, and an adapter from USB-C to USB-A, as well as an instruction manual. As for uses here, I guess pretty much anything for a webcam, live selling, gaming, content creating, and podcasting. And I would say here, I'm really focused on gaming, content creating, and podcasting. So taking a look inside the box, and the box wasn't lying. The first thing I see is an instruction manual and an extremely beefy USB-C to USB-A cable with that USB-A to USB-C adapter. That is an impressively non-cheap cable. Very surprised. The included mount that can be used to be put on a monitor or screwed into a tripod is fully metal, which is unsurprising as the camera does magnet into it. But taking a look, this mount is also not cheap, and the threaded base is very handy so it just doesn't have to go on a monitor. And speaking about not cheap, and that's kind of the theme here, the camera itself feels very well put together. The body on this one feels solid, and throughout my use, it was not overheating. The camera is powered by a single USB-C port on the back. The camera mounts to the stand both vertically and horizontally, and it only attaches via magnets, but that's really all it needs here. I would say these magnets are pretty darn strong. They're not really going anywhere. Well, the camera's not going anywhere, rather, when it's mounted to this stand. And whether it's mounted vertically or horizontally, both magnets are very strong. Now, on the rim of this camera, it looks like it's got a little dial here to focus, but that is just for style. It doesn't move anywhere. So right now, I flip back to the YoloCam S3, and that's where the intro was recorded from as well. The camera is set to 1080p and 60 frames per second. The camera does go to 4K 30, but I will not be recording in 4K 30, and it's not because of the camera, it's because of my PC. It pushes my PC just a little bit too hard, and I do run into issues trying to record in 4K, so I'm just not going to do that. So we're going to keep it here at 1080p 60 and also compare it to another camera at 1080p 60. But anyways, I've got a whole lot of light on right now. I've got some lights behind the camera as well, my standard YouTube lights. And I'll take a picture of that and just throw it up on screen so you can kind of see my setup. So here's a quick peek of the current setup. You can see the three lights behind it. They are Logitech lights, and if you're interested in them, I'll throw links in the description below. But the main focus here is that webcam. Now at this point in time, I've turned off all but one light, and that light is the light right behind the camera. The other two lights to the side of the camera are off. My overhead lights are completely off as well. And taking a look here, the frame rate is still holding on pretty darn good. I'm very impressed with this in a low light setting. But let's take a look at a low light setting compared to another camera. So we're going to have some fun here. I've got the exact same lighting on both cameras. On the left-hand side, we've got the YoloCam S3. That's the current camera we're reviewing. And on the right-hand side here, this is the Insta360 Link 2C, which was my previous camera on this YouTube channel. You can kind of guess it's been replaced by the S3. So here is the low light comparison between the two cameras. And you can also see there's a bit of a delay between one of these two cameras, and let me know your thoughts about that. So what I'm going to do at this point is just turn on some more lights and see the difference in overall performance. So at this point in time, I've gone on ahead and turned on all of the lights behind the cameras. I don't have any ceiling lights on right now. I just have the three lights on the cameras, the one behind the two cameras and the two on the sides. And here is the difference between the two cameras in terms of overall frame rates and also in terms of overall clarity. And I would say even right now, the Insta360 Link 2C is struggling a little bit. So here's what the cameras look like with all of the lights on. I've got the overhead lights on, I've got the lights on behind the cameras, and this should give you a good idea of what these cameras kind of prefer. I would say with the Insta360 Link 2C, the more light the merrier for that camera. With the YoloCam S3, I would say it doesn't necessarily seem to care how much light there is. It'll still perform well and still hold up with the frame rate. And I also didn't notice a whole lot of noise with that YoloCam S3, which I was very impressed with. So what I'm going to do now is just turn off the lights behind the camera and just have the overhead lights. So at this point in time, I've gone on ahead and shut off the lights behind the cameras, and I'm just using the overhead lights in this room. And you can probably guess or probably see why now that a lot of YouTubers have lights that shine directly in their faces. Because the overhead lights are not necessarily flattering and not necessarily the best for filming. You can see as well, I would say the YoloCam S3 is picking up a whole ton of detail where there is some detail lost in that Insta360 Link 2C. And on a quick side note here, especially without the lights in my face, I'm noticing a huge difference in latency between the two cameras. Now, normally that Link 2C I thought was pretty good for webcams in terms of overall latency. But compared with the S3, and there is a huge difference overall. So at this point in time, I've turned on the lights behind the cameras because I did want to focus on the focus. And taking a look at the S3, my face is in focus, my body's in focus, the microphone's in focus, but the background is blurred. Whereas on the Insta360, everything seems to be in relative focus. There's a lot more detail in that background, and if that's what you're going for, the Insta360 may be a clear winner here. But if you like the up-close and personal feel of the S3, that may be the clear winner. And I'm also noticing a bit of a color difference between the two cameras as well. Now, another huge difference between the two cameras is the Insta360 Link 2C does have a microphone built in, which I would not recommend using. We talked about that in a previous video, in a previous review video, where the YoloCam S3, from my understanding, does not. And if it does, my computer's not picking it up. But realistically, I don't know many people who would purchase a webcam at this price point and depend on the microphone. I'd be willing to bet that they'd want some sort of separate microphone to capture the audio. The next test here is the green screen test, to test out how these cameras look with the green screen applied. Sometimes it can drastically change how a camera looks overall and how a camera seemingly performs overall. I'm going to move around a little bit with both cameras. Let me know your thoughts on this one in the comments below in terms of what camera looks better with a green screen. And on a quick side note here, I did showcase some green screen footage in a previous video of the camera side by side, the S3 and the Link 2C, while holding a cat, the legendary One Fluff Rosie. And you can see the difference between those two cameras with a cat involved in the focus and everything. All right, to kick things off, if you think you're seeing double, you would be absolutely correct. I've got two webcams up and running right now. I've got my normal YouTube camera, which is the Insta360 Link 2C. And I've also got a brand new cam called the YoloCam S3. Now, the YoloCam S3 is marketed as a plug-and-play camera, and I would agree with that and also disagree with that. I'd agree with it, and technically they're correct. You can plug it in and just use it. However, if you wanted to get the most out of this camera, I would recommend using the software to configure it. And right now that software is only available in Windows. So with that software, you can do stuff like update the firmware, which is highly recommended, as well as tweaking some of the settings. I mean, let's take a look at some of these settings. So for the graphics settings right now, it is set to 16:9. I can put it to vertical mode 9:16 if I wanted. For the image settings, I do have the sharpness cranked, but I could turn that down if I wanted. Maybe I didn't want to showcase wrinkles or something. And I've also got the image version set to fair complexion. I am a ginger, I do have very fair skin, but I could turn that off a little bit, and you can see the huge picture difference overall. But I'm just going to keep the fair complexion on and see how that goes. And also the lens shading correction here. You can turn that on for a brighter image, or you can turn it off for, I guess, a more regular image. I mean, this to me is a little bit weirdly bright around the sides. It's not this bright in my room. This is a more accurate picture in my opinion. But taking a look at the complexion as well, I don't even know if that made a difference. Maybe it did. Well, it did a little bit here. So the complexion has changed. You can see my face is a little bit more pink in V0, and V1 here, it's not as pink. Next, we'll take a look at the focus. And this is one of my gripes with this camera. There is no manual focus. I did message them and they said they were working on it and it may be implemented in the future. But at this point in time, at the time of the review, there is no manual focus. And I find that a little bit frustrating because I'm not really moving around in front of the camera here. Aside from my hand, I have a bad habit of talking with my hands. But at the same time, I'm not really moving around. So I'd like to be able to set the focus to one length and just leave it there. But taking a look, they do have focuses that you can change. And I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of these, but at the same time, they are there. And I have found I've had to open the software and manually set the focus before I start recording. Sometimes this camera I've found struggles to focus on my face with a green screen behind me. And the last focus mode here is face. And I really don't like this focus mode, but maybe you will. So taking a look, the camera does everything it can possible to keep your face in focus at the expense of continually focusing and adjusting. And that I find super disruptive. So if I start moving around, the camera will do everything it can to keep my face in focus. I can hold things up. It's going to keep my face in focus and hopefully not focus on the other stuff. And yeah, my face is still in focus here. If I completely cover the camera, it takes a little bit, but it will focus on that other stuff. But you can see it's still trying to hunt for my face to focus in on. And you can see just as soon as I move it out of the way, it's going to focus in on my face. Maybe a handy feature, maybe not, let me know. Next, we'll switch to the zoom on the camera, and this is one of the big features about this camera. They tout a 4x digital zoom. So right now it's zoomed out all the way, and let's crank this up and see the zoom here. So there is my mouth, there's my nose, and well, it's zoomed in pretty darn good. I would say this is pretty clear for zooming in comparison with other webcams I've had. This camera also features AI, which I'm on the fence about. Now there are AI settings here and you can take a look at them if you want, but you do have to create an account. I've got no interest in doing this. I'm more interested in plug and play and making things simple and straightforward, so I'm not going to take a look at the feature in this video. If you really, really want me to, let me know in the comments below and maybe I'll do another video for it. But at the time of filming, I'm not interested in the AI stuff. It's not a part of what I do. So taking a look here at the exposure, you can also manually adjust this or auto adjust it if you want. And I am a huge fan of that. So if you like adjusting your ISO here, your shutter stuff, you absolutely can. And that to me is a huge feature overall. And the last setting here is the white balance. And I also find this to be an extremely handy feature. Again, you can do manual or auto. I don't know what this setting is. I'm guessing this is the green or maybe yellow. Anyways, you can tell this is pretty early software. Under the type, there's auto and manual. So if you don't want to set this stuff yourself, you can absolutely put auto. Or if you want to configure it yourself, right now I've got the white balance set to 3450. You can change that quite a bit. You can really warm it up or really cool it down. It's entirely up to you. Now, there is something I want to point out with this white balance as well. With this camera, I find, and some of the more expensive webcams, they do the white balance in a much more pleasing way. In some of the less expensive cameras, it goes from blue to red. And I don't necessarily think it's a great way to try to configure things if you're trying to warm up a video. It becomes very frustrating. But this camera, I think, does a really good job at being able to warm up that video if you want in a pleasing setting. And at this point in time, I still haven't got these settings perfect for my own filming. So let's get into what I like, what I don't like, and whether or not I'd recommend this YoloCam S3. So we'll start out here with what I liked. Personally, I like the lack of latency in this camera when I'm recording. It seems to be very accurate, very close to my actual movements. And also, I'm noticing it's very smooth in comparison with something like the Insta360 Link 2C, which was my previous favorite webcam. I'm a huge fan of the quality of this image. I'm a huge fan of how this camera performs in low light and regular or even highlight situations, a lot of light situations. The camera does not get too warm to the touch, and also it doesn't have a whole lot of features I'm not a big fan of. I mean, it doesn't incorporate a microphone, at least not to my knowledge. The AI stuff I'm not really a big fan of, but at the same time, if you're a fan of AI, the camera, I guess, has it. It's nice that that AI stuff is completely optional. On top of that, I like the build quality of the camera. I like the size of the camera and also the ease of use of setting up and running with this camera. I wouldn't necessarily say it's plug and play. Technically, yes, but theoretically, no. I think you're going to have to do some tweaking to get the best possible picture. Now, moving on to my dislikes about this camera, and I've really got just one here. Now, this might be a deal breaker for some people, and it might be a nothing burger for others. To me, it's kind of a huge deal, and it's the lack of a clear manual focus. Now, this camera does autofocus decently, but at the same time, I would love a manual focus option. They say it's being added, but I don't buy a product based on something that may or may not come to it in the future. I buy a product based on what's available now. And the lack of a clear manual focus, I don't think is a deal breaker, but it's a pretty big dent in this overall camera. Fortunately, the rest of the camera I think is wonderful, but that manual focus I think would have made this camera perfect. So before we get into my overall recommendation, which you can probably guess what it already is, let's take a look at the price. So for comparison here, the camera that we compared the S3 against was the Insta360 Link 2C, which was my former favorite webcam. And that is priced at $150 or $149.99 if you wanted to be specific. The Insta360 Link 2, the non-C version, the gimbal version, has the exact same camera. It just has a gimbal on it, and that's priced at $200. The YoloCam S3 is priced at $200 or $199 even, I guess, if you wanted to be specific. So at $199, this is not a cheap webcam. However, for $50 more than the Insta360 Link 2C, and this camera seems like a bit of a bargain. That might be a hot take, but I don't think so here. I just think the bump in quality is well over $50. So $50 for the S3, I think, over the Insta360 Link 2C, I think is well worth it. Overall, for a webcam, if you're looking for something great, if you're looking for the best bang for your buck and looking for something as premium as you can get without going to a DSLR or something or a mirrorless, this might be the way to go. Now, personally, I do think it's complete overkill for meeting and video calls and stuff like that. But for content creation, this is a very good camera. Over the years, I have tested out many cameras on this channel. I reviewed a ton of cameras from Logitech and OBSBot and Insta360 and now this YoloCam S3. And the YoloCam S3, in my opinion, is well above all of those cameras. This is the best webcam I have ever tested. And I'm not even joking here. I'm under no obligations to say anything in this video. I can say whatever I want. But with this camera, with the S3, I have no interest in reviewing other cameras, testing out other webcams, because I don't necessarily know if any of them can compete with the S3 right now. The S3 is just, I think it's in a league of its own. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff, except for the legendary One Fluff who did make a couple of appearances. Now, huge shoutouts to YoloLiv or YoloLiv for providing the YoloCam S3 for a fair and honest review. I was under no obligations to say anything about this camera. I was allowed to say whatever I wanted to. I could trash the camera if I wanted to, but I'm not going to. I was blown away with it, except for the clear lack of manual focus. That would be a real nice feature to add. Anyways, let me know your thoughts about the YoloCam S3 in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button. Check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate. Save your state.